Hello vinyl community, Alex back again with another video. I was gonna do like my top 10 finds of 2021, but I realized a lot of stuff I have is in a box that I've put away, so I can't do that video. Instead, I figured I will do my 10 most spun albums of 2021. Um, and obviously that's not including like new releases, like only counting the albums I've actually spun on vinyl, not counting online streams or anything. Because again, I can't do my top. I was gonna do my top 10 of 2021 as well. That was another idea, my top 10 new releases. But as I was going through my collection, I realized I only picked up one new album last year. But I can still do my top 10 of 2021. Right. But if you guys want to see that, do let me know. Um, but for now, we're gonna get into my 10 most spun albums in 2021. Like I said, I'm only counting albums that I picked up on vinyl. Um, and I've limited myself to 3 jazz albums because I have spun a lot of jazz this year. I've mainly just picked out my favourite ones out of the ones I picked up, but I have picked up a lot of jazz this year, and spun loads, and it's just been one of them years, you know, when you find something chilled, you want to listen to it. Anyway, let's get into it. These are in no particular order. So let's get into it. Rat, Out of the Cellar. From 1984 originally. This is one of the ones I did pick up this year. I actually I had heard of Rat through the vinyl community, but I'd never checked them out until I was watching the series Cobra Kai, where 2 of Rat's songs are used. One of them is on this album, which I believe the song Round and Round is the song used, and then I think one of their other songs is on their second album. But yeah, Rats Out of the Cellar is an album I've spun quite a bit this year, particularly with the discovery of it, and also the discovery of one of my new favorite shows, Cobra Kai, which I can't wait for season 5, by the way. Of that show. But yeah, Rats Out of the Cellar, absolutely incredible album. And I think I have a new favourite heavy metal band. Well, that's a bit from the 80s anyway. So anytime I find more Rat, I will pick them up. ABC, Lexicon of Love. I always give this album a listen to. From 1982. My favourite 80s album. So of course I was going to spin this one a lot this year. I've had this album a while, so this is not a new pickup for me. But just a really incredible album. Show Me, Poison Arrow, Many Happy Returns, Tears Are Not Enough. Yeah, just every song on here actually is pretty incredible. So it's just one of them albums. If I can't decide what to listen to, but I'm in the mood for 80s, I've got an 80s compilation that I play quite a bit because my partner bought it for me, and there's a lot of great stuff on it. But if I want like a pure 80s album, I always go to this one. So that's why this gets spun a lot. And I'm only counting actual albums. I'm not counting like compilations or anything. So that's why. So I had ABC's The Lexicon of Love there. You guys know I've spun this guy quite a bit, Kashif. This is his debut album from 1983. He was originally a member of the funk band BT Express from the late 70s. He's also produced a lot for Melbourne Moore, Evelyn Champagne King. He worked with Kenny G quite a bit. But this is him going out all by himself, producing and stuff. Again, not a bad song on it. If I'm in the mood for some 80s soul, R&B kind of stuff, this is the album I typically go to, just because, again, I would say it's an album defining, what? A genre defining album is what I was trying to say. So yeah, Kashif by Kashif, absolutely stellar. I spin this one quite a bit anyway, but spinning it on vinyl, this one I've spun quite a bit. I'll show you the jazz albums next, I think, because like I said, I've limited myself to 3 jazz albums, so I don't just show you 10 jazz albums and that's done with. But an album that was high on my wants list at the end of last year, Alpha Mist's Antiphon. Not last year, 2020, because I discovered it near the end of 2020, and then at some point in 2021, or at the end of 2020. What I'm trying to say is I discovered this album at the end of 2020, and then at some point in 2021 it gets reissued. That's what I was trying to say. Original pressings of this go for mad money. I can see Jenny laughing in the background because I couldn't say what I was trying to say.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. Oh, you look like an errant child.
Anyway, Alpha Mist's Antiphon. He's had a couple of albums since this, but neither of them, in my opinion, are really as good as this album, and original pressings of this are like 300 plus already. And for an album that this year will be 5 years old is pretty nuts. But yeah, absolutely incredible album from Alpha Mist. It is a modern jazz album, but definitely worth a listen if you like spiritual jazz. I don't know what's wrong with me today. I really cannot speak. Miles Davis Kind of Blue. Again, didn't really listen to the album all the way through until this year when I found this. Misprint of the album. I say misprint because there is a slight spelling error on the record label. It says all blue instead of all blues, but it's only a minor. But being Miles Davis's magnum opus, if you will, I wanted a kind of weird, unique pressing, and I found one. I didn't just want a generic pressing you can find everywhere. So this is a really cool one. Is the album that every jazz person says is the best jazz album ever made. Although I do prefer a couple of his other albums to this one, I'll definitely say this is one of the best jazz albums ever made. And it's always the first one I recommend to people who are trying to get into jazz. But I will admit this is the Miles Davis album I have spun more than any other this year, just because I was so glad when I found this, and I got it for a steal when I found it, and I don't know, I think I was blown away listening to it all the way through for the first time, you know, outside of the other Miles Davis albums that I knew quite well. But yeah, Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, another one, like I said, that I've spun all year round. And probably after listening to this album, this is probably my new favourite jazz album. And I mean, I'd listened to the title track of this, but not the album all the way through. It's Moaning by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. Like I said, I'd listened to the track Moaning, one of my favourite jazz tracks ever, but I had never ever, and you can slate me in the comments all you want for this, but never listened to the full album until earlier this year. And this is probably, other than to my third most spun album this year.
I don't even like jazz, and I've listened to that the whole way through.
I have now. Yeah, my fiance's not a fan of jazz, and even she'd listened to this all the way through, so I kind of needed to catch up. But now that I've listened to it all the way through, I can safely say this is probably, actually, yeah, without a doubt, this is my favourite jazz album of all time. And yeah, so now I'm gonna try and find anything with Art Blakey by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, but it opened my mind a little bit more to jazz as a whole genre, and is probably the reason I picked up quite a bit more jazz this year than I normally would. Built up my jazz section quite nicely. So yeah, there it is. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Moaning. I would say if I was putting these in order, this is maybe the album, my third most spun album this year. I don't know. But yeah, there's that one. Talking Heads, Speaking in Tongues, my favourite Talking Heads album. I've listened to the other albums of theirs I've picked up this year, but none have stuck out to me more than this one, my favourite by them. With songs like Burning Down the House, Slippery People, This Must Be the Place. Just an incredible album, really, really good from start to finish. Not one I picked up in 2021, one I've had a couple of years, but still my favourite Talking Heads album, and just a classic, really. But yeah, love this album. Love the Talking Heads actually as a band. I like all their albums. Some, yeah, more than others, but that's one thing I do want to make sure I do in 2022 is try and pick up more Talking Heads albums, because literally as big of a Talking Heads fan as I am, I have 4 of their albums. So I definitely need to pick up more of theirs, but this one has definitely had quite a few spins this year, I'll say. No rhyme or reason behind it. I mean, it is in my top 10 favourite albums of all time, as is Kashif, funny enough, but yeah, out of my top 10 favourite albums of all time, 2 have been spun quite a bit this year. Well, probably 3 now, because Moaning would probably be in my top 10. But yeah, Talking Heads, Speaking in Tongues has been spun quite a bit this year. As has, funny enough, an album from not 2021 but from 2020, Eminem's Music to Be Murdered By. I don't know why I've spun this album more than any of his others in 2021. Maybe because I was still living on the hype that it's the best album he's done since he was in his prime. So the best album he's done in about 20 years, but yeah, just a fantastic album from start to finish. So many features as well, from like Royce da 5'9" and Skylar Grey, some of his regulars, to Ed Sheeran, Anderson .Paak, and even Q-Tip is on this album. That is one album I do want to get, is the B-sides for this as well. But I have spun this so much this year. I have no clue why, because obviously there's albums that I consider better, there's albums that I remember most, but just living on the hype of this from 2020, I think this is hands down the best album he's put out in about between 15 to 20 years probably. It's that good. Yeah, it really is incredible. So that's why I had to spin it low. That's probably why I spun it lows this year. I don't know, but Music to Be Murdered By, just a great album. And of course, I had to give a mention to Arctic Monkeys, my favourite band. But weirdly enough, not my favourite album by them. But for some reason, Suck It and See is the album I have listened to the most from them. This year, I guess I was just in the mood for this one more. It's made me appreciate this album a whole lot more than what I did.
Maybe you're trying to like it more.
Maybe it's because
it's your favourite.
Yeah, maybe it's because I'm trying to like it more. Um, but I mean, I've definitely come to love this album a lot more than I did. Because if you go back and watch my ranking of the Arctic Monkeys albums, this would not be where it is anymore. It would definitely be higher up on that list. But there's a lot of really good bass lines here, a lot of really good riffs and hooks, and yeah, I mean, this album is really, really incredible, and maybe still not my favorite from the Arctic Monkeys, but I'd say it's at maybe top two for me, just because of how good it is. And yeah, spinning this has really made me appreciate this album more. So yeah, Suck It and See by Arctic Monkeys, probably the album I've second most spun album this year. And obviously I saved my number one most spun album this year until last, and although it only came out halfway through the year, I mean it's an old album but it's a reissue of an old album. It's the Record Store Day version of Linkin Park's Meteora. This has been on my wants list ever since I started buying vinyl, and every time there's been a pressing of it that's come out in between when I started and now, I missed my chance to get it and the price has shot up through the roof. So I wasn't missing my opportunity again. I've had this on CD for the longest time. I've even sold it and got it back. It's my favourite Linkin Park album. Linkin Park are a band, probably the first band I think I went out on my own to sort of discover, without anyone else's influence. And it's an album that eluded me. Funny enough though, here's a funny thing. After doing my top 100 albums of all time, my top 100 favourite albums in 2020, after doing that, then I find a lot of albums that I was either missing or only had on the CD or whatever, which is really, really weird, but sod's law in it, I suppose. But yeah, Linkin Park's Meteora, definitely the album I've spun the most on vinyl this year. Definitely my most played album of 2021, even including streaming. But I've always loved this album, even when I was just discovering them and who they were and what they were all about. This was the album that I discovered first. The first one I listened to all the way through by them, and just the album I have the most memories with. So of course when this reissue came out and I got it, it's no wonder it quickly became my most spun album of 2021. Yeah, Linkin Park's Meteora, hands down my I don't even have to question it, my most spun album of 2021. Anyway, that is it. There's obviously loads more albums I could have mentioned, but I narrowed it down to 10 because I didn't want this even with talking about 10, this album is nearly 20 minutes, so I didn't want to talk about another 10, make this album like an hour long, so
this album
make this video an hour long. I really cannot speak today, so I'm going to sign out before I embarrass myself anymore. Guys, thanks so much for tuning back into the channel. Thumbs up if you enjoyed, because I know I've embarrassed myself more than once in this video. Give it, subscribe to the channel. For God's sake. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I promise you I'm usually a lot more professional than what I've been in this video, but at least you've seen them all.
Professional, they ain't professional videos.
Alright. Cut me some slack.
Professional.
Normally my sense of humour doesn't come out in my videos as much as this, but at least you guys are seeing a different side to me now. You're watching me make a mockery of myself. So with
Very
that,
much so.
very much so. So guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you all again
Very soon. Sorry, I haven't done it in ages. I really wanted to.
Bye guys.
Wait, please.
Oh my god.